Hello, hello, hello. This is Tamika Seaton, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit, where we help startups, small and stagnant nonprofits grow through fundraising strategies, strategic planning, and so much more. Guys, today you are in for a treat. We have our special guest, Falon Tabares, here. But before we get into our amazing interview, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my podcast. Hodges University, with a campus in Fort Myers. Stay near, go far. They change lives for the better. Trinity Life Foundation, Naples. They help at-risk youth through their enrichment programs located in the beautiful Collier County. Vaxtruths, helping Black and Brown communities by raising awareness of COVID-19 and the vaccine. Last but not least, AVID. That stands for the Associations of Haitians Living Abroad. They just opened an amazing support center right here in the beautiful Fort Myers, where they would help you with immigration support, Hurricane Ian support, utility billing, rent utilities, and so much more. So, like I said, our special guest today is my friend, Falon Tabares. How are you doing, Falon? Falon is the founder and CEO of the Healthy Earth organization, a local nonprofit where she would share with you all the beautiful work they're doing in the community and how they're making our earth healthier. Is that correct?
That's right.
So, Falon, what we'll do is start by telling our audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go right into your organization.
Sure. So I'm Falon Tabares. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Healthy Earth. This is my full-time gig, so there's nothing else.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go hard or go home, right?
That's right. I started this nonprofit back in 2019.
Wow.
And it started from me visiting. It was like a full circle effect. Mm-hmm. I visited Hawaii back in 2019. And it was so progressive in everything they have to do with the environment. And so when I visited Hawaii, it was Kauai, this really remote island. It has the Nepali coast in it, one of like the 7 wonders of the world. And they do reef cleanups. They teach their kids how to plant from a young age. It's so progressive in the environment. There are no billboard signs because they don't want to mess up the environment.
Wow.
It's just a different type of atmosphere, culture, way of life, per se.
Way of life. Right. I like that.
And so it like came full circle because I'm from Colombia originally, born and raised, came here when I was 10. And that's the same mentality that we had in Colombia. Like at school, you were learning to grow your own food. It was necessary. Just because you didn't know if the government was going to be overturned, you didn't know any of that. And so people wanted to prepare you for real life, not just like for business life, but in real life circumstances that could happen. And so like seeing that and being in Florida for 20 plus years, I was like, why isn't anybody doing that here? And if they were like just doing beach cleanups. And so I was like, I want to be able to do something. And I have two kids that are going to be growing up in this area. I want to be able to do something that they can do as well. Their friends can do. And like, it's fun.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I think that my passion grew to like obsession. Like I'm obsessed. I'm reading something every day about it. I'm like learning because I'm an environmentalist at heart. That's not what I went to school for. I went to school for marketing and advertising. And that's my background.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is something like totally new. But what I don't know, I ask people that do know. Or I do my own research. So I think that, that's what really the Healthy Earth stem from. But we do 2 things. We do projects and research, and then we do outreach programs with like kids from 4 to 25 with the help of FGCU and Hodges University. So it's been fun. It's been quite a ride.
Interesting. So you said you work with kids from 4 to 25.
Right.
So that means that I don't qualify to work with you because I just turned 26. Is that right?
Beautiful. I love it. So I would say you would then qualify for you could teach the younger kids at that point.
I like that.
Come and work for us at that point. But we really teach, your brain doesn't stop developing until you're like 28. So we really want to ingrain in these kids and create a culture in Florida. Tourism is huge here.
It's huge.
More than 50% of their labor and our work comes from tourism, and the money comes from tourism. So we need to treat the things that are beautiful here.
Yes.
Because they bring money.
Right, exactly. Because as you know, after the hurricanes, the beaches are massively eroded, and that's the first thing the local municipalities do. They get the funding to re-nourish the beaches,
Right.
because they come here, the tourists come here specifically for the beach.
Exactly. But I think that that's fabulous, but there needs to be programs
More.
like ours, only because they can do so much. They could put new what is it called, sand down, but then they can't get everywhere, right? They have limited resources, they have limited people, so it's good for our organizations like ours, or like the Conservancy, that could step in and then do like things that are in micro doses, instead of like looking at the whole pictures. We're like zoned into one thing.
I like what you said about micro doses. Tell me about a project that the Healthy Earth Org does that's a micro project but makes a big impact.
Right. I would say our community gardens and the gardens that we're planting at early learning centers.
Oh, wow.
So like they cost us around $5,000 to $1,000 per garden. And that's really not a lot of money, right? And I'm not putting a lot of time or effort. Like our students aren't either, our interns aren't either. But then these kids, it is insane. And like we started it because, like planting is a part of the healthy earth and everything, and we want to teach people, but it's grown from that, right? So the kids are planting their own seed. Then they're like watering it. They're seeing it every day because it's within their little school, early learning center / they call it pre-K. But the fancy way is early learning center. But they're seeing it. And what we're seeing is that the kids that grow food, grow vegetables and fruit, they eat those vegetables and fruit because they're curious. Then they're learning about waste reduction because they're like, okay, it took a year for this pineapple to grow. Just one pineapple took 1 year. So they're going to eat that full pineapple to its fullest because they realize it took a lot. It's a lot of effort through the rain, through the winter. They were looking at it. So like whenever you go to the grocery store, everything is available for you. You don't know where it came from. And I'm not saying that the pesticides, away from that, you don't know the effort that it took to create that, the people that has touched that, the people that have gotten it to you. So you don't really care. It's out of mind, out of sight. So like if you have, like that grape, those grapes in your fridge for 10 months and you're like, oh, okay, I'll eat them later. Them later. It's the effort that went into that. And it's like, I think the kids that are in those, like that are exposed to those community gardens that we've been able to plant, they see it and they're grateful for it.
That's really huge, because I was just talking to my husband about that today. We watch the news every morning before we get our day started, and they were talking about food deserts, specifically in low income areas. And the first thing I said is, well, why don't they grow their own food? Because a food desert is considered when I think a grocery store is more than a mile away from someone's home. They can't basically walk to it. And I said, well, why don't they, if you have a backyard, why don't you grow some of your foods, and then maybe once a month you go to the grocery store, and if you eat meat, maybe you stockpile our meat. But I know in a lot of other cultures, meat is a very small portion of their diet. They actually cut it up into small pieces, but mostly everything is really plant-based.
Right.
So I found that really interesting. What kind of advice you can give someone who maybe is in a low-income neighborhood, and there's a food desert, and maybe they have a small yard and they can start their own little garden?
Okay, so I love that question because I had the same question. I was like, are we a food desert? Are Southwest Florida so wealthy? Collier County has like mansions in Port Charlotte, Port Royal. And
don't forget Fort Myers.
Fort Myers.
Fort Myers on the Caloosahatchee and the McGregor area. There are some beautiful homes there.
Mansions, yes. So I'm thinking like it's the people that are underserved within those areas, within the middle of that, is the food deserts. And I started doing some research because I'm like, is Immokalee a food desert? Because they have farms there. It is. And this is why I found out within that. We're helping Pace Center for Girls. We have their garden. We've been able to reamp their garden. And it's beautiful now. It's growing stuff. The girls are happy with it. This is the thing. There is pesticides in the air in Immokalee right now.
In the air?
In the air.
How
from
does
so
that?
much the farmers you're spraying those things, and it goes in the. I mean, like, it's not just getting in the plant; it's going.
Oh,
through
wow!
the air, right. So the moms understand that, and they're fearful that, like, if they plant something in their own, within their backyard, it's going to be affected. That's one thing that I've gotten from just, like, asking around in Immokalee. And I'm like, what? It's wild. I've also heard in Immokalee is that, like, it's difficult because they're like, it's expensive in the beginning. And so these people, they have to, it's an expense. And then that crop might take a long time.
Yeah.
A watermelon could take like a year, you know, or it's shorter. It just depends. The soil in Florida is different, so you have to know how to grow in Florida. It's like you can't come from California and try to grow here. It's different. And then the water. So you have to have the money to water these gardens. And the families are like, okay, we could do it, but then you're taking money out of my pocket, not only waiting for this. Then you have to water these plants, and it's like, how much do I have to water them? Because, like, I have to feed my family now. And so that's what we're seeing. And so I really want to be able to, like, create another. The goal in Immokalee is to create a garden away from the farms that are there, and accessible, and it's free. Like, you plant it, you can eat it, take it home, and then you guys share among each other. So, like, they understand that, like, it's free. You don't have to stress about it. Come, but then their kids. It, like, it's it's like a growing thing.
So I have a question for you. So I'm a pescatarian, meaning my diet is mostly comprised of seafood, and I eat a lot of plants, but I have been stepping away from fruit, specifically because of pesticides. Because I'm eating healthy, specifically like strawberries and certain fruit. You think you're eating healthy, but then you're eating all these pesticides. What do you have to say about that? If someone, okay, I'm trying to eat healthy, have a plant-based diet, but then all these pesticides are in my food. Right.
I would say get educated. There is a website. It's called EWG. And they tell you which vegetables and which fruits are the ones that are exposed to the most pesticides. And they're like the obvious ones, the ones that they don't have skin, the ones that you don't have to peel to eat. So strawberries, grapes, all of those. They're gotta buy organic. But then the organic ones might also be exposed to it.
They are. They just don't have as much.
Right. They don't have as much. Right. And so that's one of the reasons why maybe you can start doing it at home yourself. It's so difficult because people.
But how do you do that when you're trying to run a business and you know?
Right, because it takes time. It takes time. You have to tend to it, and I would just say, eat organic. It's expensive.
It's expensive. But
let me tell you another reason why. Besides the pesticides. It is a proven fact. There's scientific knowledge behind what I'm going to say. And it's, the strawberries that we had back in the 50s, 40s had nutrient. It was dense with nutrients. The soil has so much changed now. We haven't treated it well. We're just kind of just like, it's like this economy type of market that we just want to sell. We're not being good to the land. And so the nutrient in that one strawberry that you're having is way less than it was back in the 50s and the 60s, whatever it was back then. So like now you have to eat more fruits and vegetables than ever to get the nutrients that you needed, like that you had before. So that's why I'm like, yeah, it's expensive, but you have to do it because right. Like you're gonna have pesticides and you're gonna have less nutrients, even if it's strawberry.
It's really tough. It's really tough. Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about the research that the Healthy Earth Org does.
Yeah. So we have just started the research, and the research is just really asking the community what they need, what the needs are. Okay. Because we started out, the need is to educate the youth. That's fantastic, but it can't stop at that. Like the families need to be also educated. And so we're slowly and surely asking. So that research is about polling people, asking what they need. And then on top of that, we're really into water quality. We're getting into water quality. We're getting into data collection for the reef cleanups. There's so much lead out there, and like we're eating that. Fish is around that. There's and I'm like, and there's plastic out there. The last cleanup we did was 4 days before the hurricane, April 24th. We picked up 400 pounds of debris.
Wow.
Most of it was casting nets, and all of the casting nets had lead in it.
That was
heavy lead.
Brings the lead into the sea.
Yeah, there's natural
casting
lead.
nets?
There's natural lead, but then you add on old anchors that people forget. You're adding on crab traps that are made out of like this bad things, and people forget about stuff, and it's wild. It's contamination.
Okay, speaking of contamination, I'm a pescatarian, and I think that I'm eating healthy because I'm eating seafood, but then I find out about certain fish are not good because they have lead, and I hear like tilapia is the worst, and certain fish, but I'm like, oh my God, like what am I supposed to eat? Just drink water?
When does it end?
And then some of the water is bad because if you look on the back of it, they have chlorine in it, sodium, and I'm like, so I try to stick with spring water because from my understanding, that's the most natural you can get. Tell us about, okay, if you're pescatarian, like, is it even, and I know you're not a scientist, but to your knowledge, is that even safe eating seafood?
Right. So like, I'm going to say, there's a disclaimer here. I'm not a scientist.
Right. According to some things you've read.
Opinion,
yeah.
And it's so difficult, right? Because I was a vegan for 2 years. Then I was a vegetarian. Now I'm starting to eat meat again just because of the low levels of energy that I had. I was like wanting to sleep all the time just because I wasn't measuring the amount of proteins within the legumes I was having or the vegetables. And so I was like, okay, let's just introduce meat and like, let's move on with the energy.
Yeah.
It's so difficult because like I was all about wild fish. Let's do wild fish.
Right.
But then they're exposed to all these things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, farm fish, it's better because they're not exposed to it. But then they're like cramped.
Right.
Quality of life is terrible.
Right.
It's like they are infested with their own
feces.
And it's like, so the problem, that's a huge thing of why even the Healthy Earth was created. The mission is to create new ideas, solutions, and inventions we've never had. And we start that by cultivating in the future of the kids. Like, you are the future. You need to come with the ideas.
Yeah.
You are the ones that are going to change this radically.
Yeah.
And so there is no answer I can give you besides we need to start,
just educate yourself and make the best decision possible for yourself and your family.
Right. And listen, all of this takes money. So the most areas that are heavily affected are the ones that are middle class, that are just trying to make it, or the poor, because they don't have time to research. They're out in the field working the farm,
right?
Like for somebody else, or like they don't have time to like, oh, I know that family farm, I'm gonna go buy my cow from there. They don't have the money to put that down payment for that cow. But if you can, please do. So
very good. That was a lot of great information. What is the top 3 needs of your organization if someone out there listening and they wanted to get involved and make an impact?
Sure. So thank you. So I would say number 1, ask us about volunteering opportunities. We always have those available. I would say number 2, ask us about anything that has to be maybe with an advisory board. We have tons of opportunities there. And then number 3, we have like an Amazon Smile account, but also like they're getting rid of it. The Smile account.
Why?
I don't know. I got an email from Amazon saying that it's going to be over.
Really?
Yeah.
You think it was too much work for them?
Maybe, but I was like, that sucks, because that was like $300-400 a year that we would get for them.
Wow.
Just by doing nothing,
Wow.
But also we have like a checklist. Is that what it's called? Amazon checklist, where you can go and find out what our needs are.
Oh, wish list.
Wish list. Yes. Checklist.
That's okay.
Yes. So that's the ways that you can help, and you can also donate.
Yeah, donate and share with us your website and how to reach you.
Sure. So you could reach us at our phone number 239-537-6436. Send me a text. Send us a text, and then our website is thehealthyearth.org.
Okay, guys, you heard it here first. another nonprofit here in the beautiful Southwest Florida, doing amazing things for our community. Reach out to Falon, even though I butchered her name in the beginning. She's so gracious, and every guest that I have is so gracious because I always butcher their names, and then when they introduce themselves and they pronounce their name correctly, I'm like, oh Lord, here I go again. But you're so gracious. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on our podcast and share the great things that you're doing in the community.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Stay tuned, guys.